when firing happens from one side, from the valley side, the amount of ammunition that they use is crazy. It's
From
like
which side you mean?
from the
From the
valley,
valley,
from the
from the
valley,
valley.
from the valley. It's like people keep count, the central forces keep count and they say 800 rounds, 700 rounds. It's like continuous firing for no reason. The central forces are supposed to be in between and put their lives at risk. That's something that we need to think about too, right? Of course, they have a role. They are here because they are supposed to protect the people. But the fact that the Manipur state government refuses to back down or make its people back down from continuing this violence in the buffer zone is according to me so. I mean, I don't know what word to describe that. So many lives are at risk. There was this one particular village where there was a person with a hearing disability who couldn't hear the mob and hence eventually was burnt down. How do we move forward when we've not even been able to bury our dead? This is one of the statements that they've made right from the time that I've been here. That first conversation that I had when I came here is this: that we will start when we can, address the issue of our people, who have been killed, who've been lynched, who are in the morgues. We want their bodies. We want to bury them. That's why they did this whole, these make-believe coffins. Many of us journalists, we've observed this, right? That if mob violence or if riots continue for more than 48 hours, then there is a role of the government in that. This kind of conflation will not help the situation here because you're not talking about the role of the state. I have been here, the first district that I came to is Kangpopi. So in Kangpopi itself, from the time that I've come here, I know that there were regular attempts to breach that buffer zone by Meiteis. In fact, the army, the Assam Rifles were shot at by the IRB here.
Hello and welcome to the News Minute. It's been more than 80 days. Manipur is still volatile. There are horrifying stories and reports that are coming to light from Manipur of violence, death, and despair. Today, we are joined by someone who has been reporting out of Manipur for the past few months. Greeshma, thank you so much for talking to us. Greeshma is an independent journalist. She has been reporting for several media organizations, both in India as well as abroad. Greeshma, take us through the situation that is prevailing on ground after the video that went viral. There has been outrage across the country. People are demanding answers. But how has this improved the situation in Manipur?
I would say no, things haven't changed because if few districts in the state of Manipur are completely cut off and they continue to remain cut off from any kind of administrative action, which includes in the cases of all the violence, including the B5 case and so many other cases, because there was so much pressure on after the video came out and it went viral. uh, they started taking action, right? But even in that action, if you see, they are arresting people, but the role of larger organizations that have orchestrated the violence, the role of the police, these things, either they are yet to be investigated or they're not being investigated on, because in the arrests we've not seen anybody from from, let's say, the state. By the state, I mean the police, because by now, of all the statements that have come out from the victims and their families, they've mentioned that the state police were also there when this happened. So I would say that they have been pushed to act on this case, but the fact that there are so many other such cases which they are not acting on is something that kind of shows us what the situation is, right? That the criminal justice system is completely paralyzed. It's dead, actually. Uh, these FIRs, so many of them are just lying there untouched. That's one part of it. Because, one of the main, uh, how do I put it? One of the main things that the community is talking about is that how do we move forward when there is no justice? How do we move forward when we've not even been able to bury our dead. This is one of the statements that they've made right from the time that I've been here, that we will not be open to any kind of conversation unless you at least let us bury our dead. You're not even facilitating that. Then where is the question of talks or normalcy or anything, right? Which is a very like legitimate thing to say. I mean, it's so basic, isn't it? So on that front, things are all stuck. Even the relief camps, this I've already reported on, so have others. Most of the relief camps in the hill districts get no support from the state government. There is a train that just recently came, the first dispatch from the prime minister or something like that, which reached Biren Singh. The CM Biren Singh was there to receive that train. We know that those supplies are not going to come to the hill districts, because till now supplies from the valley, which is of the state, hasn't come to the hill districts. Even the supplies that come to the hill districts either come from the neighboring states, or people figure it out themselves. So again, there also there is, you can't say that things are normal there. Other than that, the violence, it's happening on a daily basis even now. Today there was firing. The last time I spoke to somebody from one of the border areas between Churachandpur and Vishnupur, there was firing, intense firing yesterday, today, just a few days back, while everybody was talking about the violence. A school was burned down in Torbung, which is a border, again, at the periphery of Churachandpur, where there is very heavy deployment of central forces. So, so I don't know. I don't know this. I don't know why we are even like focusing on if things are normal, because it's when the state government here has not made any attempts to create um, any kind of beyond conversations, even attempts, to accept what their role is in this violence, that they were part of this violence, that they have a role in perpetuating this violence. I don't think any conversation about normalcy or anything will be will be accepted by people who are from the hills, the cookies of people.
So when you say that the government is not doing anything, not putting in enough efforts, and there is actually pressure, on both the union government as well as the state government, but the state government appears to be remaining defiant. Even yesterday, the chief minister Biren Singh has made a statement saying that they are only trying to protect their territory from the foreign forces, and this is the kind of propaganda that is going on from the state side. So these kind of statements are making things difficult. That is what you are trying to tell me, or like, is there
But
a
that has
lack of
also been
effort
part of.
on?
No, but the problem is that be it CM Biren Singh or other Meitei legislators or other Meitei organizations like Kokomi, it has been part of their design to make this, to kind of dilute what they have done by saying that, there are foreign elements. That's how I see it. There have been various ways through which they have tried to, kind of run away from accountability. And one is to kind of show that they are victims. Like, this is something that we see in different parts of the mainland as well, where majoritarian communities pretend to be victims from minorities, right? We've seen this happen in different places. Here it's very specific. It's the design is similar, but it is specific to the way to which they have referred to people who are affected by the war in Burma. Something which, if you see in their neighboring state, again, what was I going to say? The neighboring state of Mizoram, where if you were to see the from the statements to the approach of that government, and they're also doing it. The union government is very aware of what Mizoram government is doing. They're very empathetic towards people who are displaced by the war, which is what is expected from, all democratic countries, modern countries. When when country just 2 kilometers from your border, people there are being bombed, people there are being attacked, people there are being killed, you're expected to be humanitarian in this way. It's a basic expectation. And the neighboring state of Mizoram has been doing it. But here in Manipur, instead, it has been twisted. This entire narrative has been twisted to make Meiteis seem like, that they are victims of these people who are coming through the border. And these people are who? These people are people who've lost their homes, who've lost their lives. And people, again,
Hmm.
if we were to take out reports of the displaced from Burma, right, all of them keep articulating that they want to go back, because the Indian economy is probably, it's horrible for, for common people, normal people, to even afford like essentials, especially in a war-torn place like Manipur right now. It's horrible. Things are extremely expensive. But the displaced from Burma who come across say that in spite of war being there in Burma, essentials are affordable there. These are things that might, seem like trivial, but they're important for us to note, right? So, in that sense, the Burmese displaced, the way in which they have been maligned, the way in which there are numbers, there are numbers of how many people are there. There are numbers that have been submitted uh, by some of the organizations, cookie CSO organizations, about how many displaced are there. All of these has been submitted to the administration. Legislators have submitted these details. Yet this has been twisted around to make it seem like they have a role in Meiteis feeling insecure. But that
Hmm.
is just propaganda. That's just clean propaganda. Anybody who's able to look through this would say that Biren Singh continues to use that language. Biren Singh and his lackeys, be it that Pramod Singh or whatever, all these people, right? It has been part of their language, to kind of part of their, what do you say, speeches and all of that, to constantly talk about these displaced people who can do nothing in Manipur. What can they do? The Meiteis have been dominant here for decades, since they have the state of Manipur was formed. All governmental organizations, if you see, all all instruments of the government has always had Meitei domination. It's only very recently that people with the help of reservation, be it people who are Naga or people who are Kuki, people who are from indigenous communities, have started making inroads into
Hmm.
the bureaucracy or other parts of the government here. And that is also part of their insecurity. The upward mobility of some of the tribal communities here is also, I would say, one of the reasons why the Meiteis are insecure. But that's not what they're articulating. No, they're articulating stuff like foreigners, whatever. But yeah, that has nothing to do with this conflict. This conflict is this it's not even a conflict. This situation is clearly, the state of Manipur has the primary role in this turning out the way it has. They did not do anything to control violence, because they could have. If they wanted to, they could have. We all, many of us journalists, we've observed this, right?
Hmm.
That if mob violence or if riots continue for more than 48 hours, then there is a role of the government in that. This is something that I used
Looking
to
the
even
other way,
challenge.
basically, you just look the other way,
Basically
and the
looking the
violence
other way.
continues. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the role of and 2 months after, video comes out, and then within a day people are arrested. It's just like, there's clearly no political will to do anything to kind of make people from the hill districts, cookies or people from the hill districts, feel like, this government represents us as well. They're clearly saying that we
So,
are not here for you, you know.
so clearly there is a disconnect between the government and the Kukizo community. But what do they have to say about the role of the union government? At one point, they should have stepped in. They should have done something. But even the union government is unable to do anything. Or like, what exactly is the sentiment on
No, that
ground?
is again, it's again something that we only can speculate about, right? Because the union government hasn't said much. When Amit Shah, Home Minister Amit Shah came, he met with the leaders here.
Hmm.
The people here and the union government has said that they are in conversation and in talks with the Sioux groups here about a solution for the demands of the people from here. So this conversation, these discussions that are happening between the central government and with the community leaders here, I don't know if it's okay for us to say that, hey, you know what, these talks take time, because I don't feel it's okay for us to, take that kind of a stand, because this thing is dragging on, and every day that it drags on, people are affected in different ways. There is, there's the matter of children, there's the matter of, there's the situation of young adults, teenagers, people who are like not, I mean, even kids are aware, everybody is aware of what's happening, right? Kids as young as 10, 11, 12, they're all very aware. Whenever I'm interacting with people, I can see that children are also affected. I mean, of course they are, but I'm saying that the more there is impunity, the more there is silence from the central government in refusing to come in and pull up the state government, hold them accountable, and bring the situation, where the demands are addressed in a way, because these demands are not just from now, these demands were there before as well, but demands specific to this violence are addressed, to kind of at least make people here in this community, cookies or community, feel like, okay, there is somebody that we can turn to. Because a simple demand like we want to bury our dead, if you can't address that, if you want 3 months to address something as simple as that, then I don't know what it is that the
Okay,
central government is doing.
you made this point that we want to bury our dead, because I wanted to ask you specifically about that. What is the problem in uh, burying the dead? Like, is there a is there some kind of issues that they are facing, or what exactly
The
is
bodies are in the valley. All
in
the
the
bodies
valley,
of people who
and
were killed
they
in
have
the
not got it.
valley. No,
It's
they've
in the
not. How
mortuary.
can
It's
they?
it's in the mortuary.
It's in the mortuary. It's in the
Yeah.
Jenims and Rims morgue,
Hmm.
and they can't access it. How can they access it, right? They can't access it, and that has been one of the central demands that right from the beginning. First conversation that I had when I came here is this: that we will start when we can, you know, address the issue of our people, who have been killed, who've been lynched, who are in the morgues. We want their bodies. We want to bury them. That's why they did this whole, these make believe coffins. There's a whole
Hmm.
demonstration where they carried
Yeah.
this make believe coffins and they placed it in front of the wall of remembrance. And those coffins remain there. They've said that the coffins will remain there till they're dead, till the people who've died are buried. So even within war there are a lot of things about how is it that you deal with people who've been killed, right? None of those, according to the community, the state government hasn't, like, when Meiteis during the violence, for instance, in Kamanlok, and in the violence in and around Kuakta, Awanglekai, when these places were being attacked and the Meiteis were killed during these attacks, when they were in Kamanlok, they burnt down 10 Kuki villages, and then there was a retaliatory attack from Kukis, where when the Meiteis were in a Kuki village after burning it down, Kukis went back there and they shot Meiteis down. And out of those, I think 12 is the official number. These 12 people were taken back. They were given like their body. It was like some what? It's their burial. There was a procession to take the
Hmm.
dead. Their burial was. They were all called martyrs and all of that. Whatever that the community wants to do with those bodies, they did. It was like a state. It was a big thing in the
Hmm. Hmm.
valley. So that is like the casualties on that side, and this the point that I'm trying to make is they have access. uh, how do I put this in the right way? The community here, right, they keep talking about that. They're like, see, yes, people from even that side are getting killed. If they try to enter our villages, we will attack in retaliation, and if they get killed, then we can't help it. But look at it, they're at least able to, like, bury their dead. They're at least able to do what is required
So
when
they have the advantage of giving a decent burial for the dead, but we
yeah,
even
yeah.
we don't have that advantage. We
We
are
don't have
still,
that because
yeah.
bodies from May
Huh.
3rd, May 4th, May 5th, May 18th, all the bodies are in the morgue, right? And they're decaying. The
Yeah.
capacity of the morgues are also not enough to, accommodate all these bodies, is something that I've been told as well. So yeah, the bodies are decaying. I'm just bringing this up because it feels like a very simple demand and a legitimate demand. So I feel like this is like,
And even
like when we think
and
about,
even this is the basic demand. This is the basic thing to
yeah.
start a conversation, or to give them that assurance that okay, we are willing to listen to you. Why do you think that both the union government and the state government is unable to do this?
I mean, because they don't, I don't know, because, Meiteis are a dominant community and they don't want to antagonize the dominant community. What else? Like, one is this demand. The other demand is many of the colleges, universities of Manipur, right? All the important big universities are all in the valley. And these universities like Manipur University or medical universities like RIMS and GENIMS and so many other colleges, they've all had quite a few cookies or students as well who now can no longer go to the valley. And one of the first demands that they placed within 3-4 weeks of the violence is, please make alternative arrangements for us so that we can attend classes, because they restarted classes in the medical colleges on the 22nd of May, if I'm not wrong. That's the date. But they even had examinations, the medical university even had an exam, and these kids haven't been able to give their exams. Manipur University has started classes, and right now the way the situation is, there is no possibility of these kids going back to those colleges, those universities.
To
But
the
the
valleys, you
the
mean?
to
To the
the
universities
valley,
that are there in the valleys? Yeah.
that are there in Imphal. So
Hmm.
what's going to happen to them? What's going to happen to their studies? Like, just the medical students, uh, the demands that they've given to the central government is, please help us migrate to universities outside Manipur at least.
Hmm.
You know, help us migrate to universities, let's say in Shillong or like wherever. They've written to the National Medical Council as well. The health minister of Manipur, he, within a couple of weeks, he had a conversation with the central government, and he requested that the students from Churachandpur Medical College be allowed to take classes in the valley, the Meitei students from Churachandpur Medical College and the other non cookie students. So that he did. There is only one medical university in the hill districts, which is
Hmm.
Churachandpur Medical College, and it has only facilities for first years. They just started that university. Okay. So within the first year students, the first batch, there were few Meitei students and not few, quite a few Meitei students and non-Manipuri or non-Kuki students. All of them were given the option to take classes in the valley. You know, this was done where the health minister, he flew to, please check who the minister is. He went
Hmm. Hmm.
to Delhi. He spoke to the authorities there, and it was made, an announcement was made through Northeast Live that these students can now take classes in the valley. But why didn't you speak about the cookies of students, all the cookies of students who are in these medical colleges? Or why didn't the education minister, anybody, think about these students? Because they're constantly placing, there's so many memorandums that they've placed about wanting to continue their studies in the hill district. Some alternate arrangements, at least when examinations are made, let us write exams. But it hasn't happened. So see, like, there are so many such demands. One is this burial of their dead, decent burial of their dead, demands of these students, demands for super specialities are not available in
Hmm.
the hill districts. Most of the
And
hospitals,
relief material, are they able to get
relief
relief
material is
material in
something
camps?
that they have not got from the state.
Hmm.
In fact, in Tengnopal, they were struggling to access PDS rice. They were struggling because the PDS rice was stuck in Thaubal. They were struggling to access it when I was there because it was stuck there and their stocks were going to run out, is what the authorities and the administration told me. So
I
relief
saw
is being airdropped.
one of your posts in which you said that the hill districts require relief materials, and a lot of requirements are there for the people who are living in camps or for people who are in the hill districts. Is there any way that they can get access to these materials, or they have to be dependent on the state government, or are they making their own arrangements?
They're making their own arrangement. The state government, till now, according to what I have been told by the CSOs here, has not provided with any of the relief camps any supplies. That is one thing. Second thing is, there has been no communication. Forget about them giving. There has been no communication. Of course, there's the DC who is in Kangpopi and who is in Churachandpur, but even the DC, they are not able to access anything from the valley, in terms of supplies or anything. They get it either from Mizoram side in Churachandpur or in here in Kangpopi from Nagaland side. Everything that's being airdropped
So
into the valley, right? All the
the
relief from the
supply that
central.
has to come, it has to come from the valleys, and it's being blocked.
It's been blocked. So a lot of relief material was airdropped into the airport. There's this train that has come. There are a couple of national highways that can access the valley. That those relief materials have come through those national highways. Now NH2 has opened, so there are trucks flying regularly on NH2. So whatever officially is coming from the central government, the package that Amit Shah announced, some 101 crores something, nothing has come to the hill districts.
Okay, people. So nothing has changed. Even after the video that went viral, and the entire country is outraged, they're shocked, they're demanding answers. On ground, things have not improved. Nothing has changed.
Yeah, the thing is, even when the video went viral, people were all talking about how the situation of women, how can women be treated this way, was the narrative, popular narrative that was driven. Even the prime minister, he spoke like that, right? He didn't really say why
He
is
spoke
ethnic
about one
violence happening
incident.
in Manipur.
Yeah, he spoke about that one incident.
He didn't mention who the women were, in what context they were attacked, what the mob was composed of, how the mob attacked the woman, why the mob attacked the woman, who facilitated that attack. None of this he said. None of this has even been driven into the narrative, right? Like a lot of journalists are now here, a lot of national media, broadcast channels are all here, but beyond kind of looking at this as something of like how can you treat humans like this or how can you treat women like this, they are not talking about the fact that this is part of the ethnic violence here. This has to be placed in the context of the ethnic violence. This has to be placed alongside all other killings that have happened, and that this is structural violence. This is not a one off.
Hmm.
So that kind of narrative is needs to come through for this issue to be addressed the way it has to be, because like you can't generalize it. The kind of generalization happening with cases from other states, all cases have their own context, right? Here the sexual violence that has happened is, I would say,
Hmm.
state sponsored Meitei, like driven by a particular community towards another. So one kind of a xenophobic kind of a sexual assault is how we would have to place this. Similar to, like, I'm saying this is one form. If you want to talk about sexual assault which happened in Rajasthan, where Dalit woman was attacked, then you have to say that that's caste based. It's a caste rape, right?
Hmm.
So every instance of sexual assault or violence has to be spoken in its context for us to understand what is happening. But speaking like the PM, where he's saying all these women, it's like this kind of conflation will not help the situation here, because you're not talking about the role of the state. You're not even talking about the role of that community as they run the state and perpetuate this kind of violence. So it's helping nobody. All this international, national attention is helping nobody unless it's contextualized this way.
And also, you were telling me how much of it has come out, like the violence that has happened there, uh, in the media. Like you said, now that national channels are focusing, now there is some kind of attention on Manipur. How much of the violence has come out, or are there any instances that are like yet to be reported, or it has not come to light?
No, people right now are like looking for FIRs. People from other, I would say, other outside of Manipur agencies are looking for FIRs. They're trying to share details, but I would still say that a lot of the, like for instance, the killings that happen at the periphery areas, right? Like
Hmm.
many of them are, there are still missing people. There's still a list of missing people that they're trying to ascertain where
Are there any
the
numbers? How many people are missing?
no, that's the thing, right? That is something that here, I don't know about the valley, but here in the hill districts, they are trying to figure, because like this is in some of my initial reports, I had mentioned how in particular villages there are people, let's say people with disabilities, right?
Hmm.
There was this one particular village where there was a person with a hearing disability who couldn't hear the mob, and hence eventually was burnt down, similar to how David Thieck was burnt down. Just that we don't know what happened to that person, because they only found him completely burnt.
Hmm. Hmm.
There have been similar instances like this where people who weren't in a position to escape,
Hmm.
at least I've come across at least a few cases, were burnt down. These FIRs are in the process of being registered, because in many of these instances, that entire displaced village, right? When they come here, the focus is on figuring out how to deal with the displaced, where to make them stay, etc. So in their conversations with me, they would mention it. They would even show me photos, because many of them go back to their villages to check what has happened, putting themselves at risk, taking photographs, and then again escaping. So these are villages where cookies have completely, they can't enter at all. There are many such villages on the periphery areas, cookie villages, which have completely been burned down, and they can't go back there. So these places, and these are like, in
Periphery
cycle
areas means
itself,
along the
between,
hills, between
no, no,
between the valley and the hills.
between the valley and the hills. So
Hmm.
there are more than 50 odd villages in just this Kangpopi itself, which they can no longer access,
Hmm.
you know, because it's like the island block is completely cut off, and that has more than 48, 50 villages. So we can't even go back there. Even as a journalist, I can't go back there to check, for bodies, or, or for who, like people who have been left behind, or people who are missing. We don't know from these villages. We don't know whether they're killed, whether they're elsewhere. This is something that they're figuring out themselves. But even if we were to go to that village and verify, we are not able to do it.
Hmm.
So there are many areas which are still in the gray, and there are many cases that still require to be highlighted. Like for the past 1 month, I've been talking about this case of this very young student called Hanglal Muan
Hmm.
Vaipai,
Hmm.
who was arrested on the 30th of April because he wrote this social media post. He shared a forward on his Facebook, which was critical of the CM. He was arrested on the 30th, and he was taken to the valley. He was arrested from Bethel village in Churachandpur. He was taken to the valley. On the second, he gets bail. Then he's rearrested in another case. And then again, he's in custody. And on the fourth, apparently, this is what the police told the family. I've tried contacting the police, they didn't talk to me. This is what the family told, the police told the family, that he was taken to court again. They told him to, the order was to take him to Sajiva Central Prison, which is the prison here. And
Hmm.
while they were taking him, a mob found him and he was beaten to death.
Yeah.
This is what the official statement from them to the family is. But it is a case of custodial killing, right? It is a case of custodial killing. We don't know what happened in the valley. He died in custody. For
Hmm.
all we care, he died in custody. And the family tried so much to ask them about what, where, how, and they've not got any answers. And this is a really young boy, first generation graduate, was helping his parents as he was studying, was a church leader, was a musician, was somebody who is, like, when I visited the family, their walls were filled up with his certificates. So for me to see such a case like this, of a young person who just shared something on social media and then he was killed eventually in the mob violence, it's still something that I feel like is not highlighted enough.
Hmm.
you know so there are cases like this, many cases like this. Everything has to be highlighted in the context of the ethnic violence and highlighted enough. So yeah, I feel like that is in the process of
And
happening. I hope more of it happens.
yeah, and Grishma, the role of army. Some BJP MLAs from the Kuki community, they have given interviews. They say that army is our only saving grace. But is the army doing enough? Because for people who are outside, when they say that there is army that is deployed, we hope and believe that okay, the army is able to contain the violence. But despite that, you are saying that there are shootouts that are happening, there are villages that are burned, there are houses that are burned, and every day we hear that there is the situation in Manipur is volatile. So, what exactly is the role of the army there?
The last village that was burnt was Langsa, no? That was in the first week of July. After that, there have not been any burnings of villages, but there have been, like, the school was burned down last week. But there is firing that happens in the buffer zones. That happens. There's heavy firing that goes on. And the central forces don't do much there, or can't do much there. That's what they say, that they can't do much there. But for instance, in Langsa, not only in Langsa, even in Kamanlok, and in most of the other places where these burnings happened, right, of villages, the central forces have maintained that when they are trying to access these regions, they are blocked off by these Mira Paitis, and hence they can't do much in those situations. That is what they said for Bethel as well. and even for Langsa they said the same thing. So that is, there are certain places where they say that, we can't do anything because there's a mob of 1,500, 2,000 people of Mira Paibis, of Meitei women. How do we go past them? And the Meiteis on their part, they say that, this is our strategy, this is our war strategy. And if the army says they don't have anything to combat that, I don't know what to say. But yeah, I mean, in many of the buffer zones, at least in the buffer zone in Kangpopi, where there is this place called, there's this border village called Phailang, and across it there is a buffer zone, and right next to it, adjacent to it, are these hill ranges. The Assam Rifles are posted here, and they have a substantive role in kind of securing this part, because there have
Hmm.
been constant, regular attempts. I have been here, like, the first district that I came to is Kangpopi. So in Kangpopi itself, from the time that I've come here, I know that there were regular attempts to breach that buffer zone by Meiteis. In fact, the army, the Assam Rifles were shot at by the IRB here. There is video footage of this.
Hmm.
They've been shot multiple times by forces from the state, Manipur State Police. So they have been pushing back. This is one example. They've been pushing back to the extent that they've put their own men at risk. And to think about it, that these officers who all have who are all human beings like us, like the civilians here, right? That they are on the verge of, they are also putting their lives at risk because the state of Manipur wants to, like, weaponize its people to attack another community.
Hmm.
The central forces are supposed to be in between and put their lives at risk. That's something that we need to think about too, right? Of course, they have a role. They are here because they are supposed to protect the people. But the fact that the Manipur state government refuses to back down or make its people back down from continuing this violence in the buffer zone is according to me, so, I mean, I don't know what word to describe that. So many lives are at risk, actually, because many of these things, if you see, these instances of firing, they're indiscriminate. It's like when firing happens from one side, from the valley side, the amount of ammunition that they use is crazy. It's
From
like
which side you mean? From the
from the
from the valley?
valley, from the
From the
valley,
valley.
from
Yeah.
the valley. It's like people keep count, the central forces keep count and they say 800 rounds, 700 rounds. It's like continuous firing for no reason. So it's
And
like,
that
what
and that
point?
amount that amount of ammunition is available only with government agencies, or only the army can
No,
have,
but
or
that for that,
I'm saying, like, in other
no, the
cases.
army. No, I'm saying the central forces are not firing back because they even they have. I'm sure even they have, like, limited resources, right? But
Hmm.
that the valley is highly weaponized at the moment is something that we know because of the armories that were looted there, and the
Hmm.
amount of ammunition that came out of the valley is that was given away to people. This is an official statement that was given away to people is something that we are aware of. By people, I mean Meitei groups. So yeah, that we can clearly see. If you were to go to an area where firing has happened, the amount of ammunition that they use when firing is going on, we are just like, what's happening? Of course, when there is, when they are trying to, when the firing happens into the cookie areas, like for every, like, people within the volunteers or whichever people who are the armed portions of the cookie territory, right? They can't even, like, I have seen the firing, like for every, like, 50 rounds or something, there'll be one response either from the cookies or from the central forces, because nobody has ammunition like this that you can just keep firing for time pass. But that's how it happens, and it's dangerous because they're firing randomly. It can land on an officer, it can land on a jawan, it can land on somebody who is in the village, it can land on anybody. So, the coming back to your question, yes, the central forces have a important role to play in the buffer zones in ensuring that people from this side don't come. People from the cook, of course, it's always been the Meiteis trying to breach the buffer zones. This is something that we have to, like, kind of, like, be very clear about.
Emphasize
There
and
have
be
no
very.
not been any instances of there are sorry
No, this is something that we have to emphasize, is what I'm.
emphasize. There have
Yes,
been no instances of cookies going and burning going across to Bishnupur. Like, most of the burnings that have happened, or most of the attacks that have happened within cookie territory, right? That's why they say that we are protecting our land. We are protecting the land, which is all hill districts, right? Most of the violences, if you take, no, and you see most of the violence most of the incidents of violence, if you take and see, it's in the hill districts. So all the buffer zones in between the hill and the valley is where the central forces are really trying. But again, there have been instances where, like for instance, that bus, that school was burned down.
Hmm.
It was like, I mean, that region is where you'll see heavy deployment of CRPF, but they couldn't stop it. There is a Meitei area from that school which is just 75 meters away. And these guys just came and they've set it ablaze. And it was, of course, planned, you know. You can't set an entire school ablaze like just randomly like that. So, yeah, the
So,
central forces are trying, I would say,
hmm.
but not every time can they, like, like sometimes they have themselves said that we couldn't do anything because we couldn't. We were
They're
stopped.
helpless.
You know, yeah, they're helpless. That's what they've said. But I don't know whether I would completely buy that because we know how the central forces operate in other places. But this is their narrative.
But the people of Manipur had a problem with the army, the AFSPA. There have been, issues in the past. But now, on from both sides, at least, how do you see this contradiction? Like from army, which was once seen as an enemy, now uh,
No, the
it's there to
Meiteis
help them.
continue. The Meiteis continue to say that they don't. They want AFSPA to be completely removed. They want the Assam Rifles to leave. They have been saying that same thing even now because
Hmm.
also that is, you have to see that in the context of the Meitei separatist UG groups
Hmm.
that function, and that's a narrative that they also push, right? Because for them to function freely, the army has to leave. So
The
we need
army
to
is a
see it in the
stumbling
context.
block for them.
Yeah, is a stumbling block for them. So we need to view these statements from Meitei groups in that context. But the thing that has been said from the Kukizo side is to, that the reason why they were asking for president rule is because that's the only way you can completely do combing operations and make sure that weapons from all sides are taken away, right?
Yeah, to
Not only
disarm
this
them.
side,
You can't you
to
can't you
disarm
can't ask
everybody.
people to come and drop your arms
Yeah.
in one place.
That's
That's not
that's
going to
just
happen.
bullshit. That's just, I mean, how would I say? It's just like an eyewash.
Hmm.
So that's why the this side was demanding for president rule so that there can be complete de-weaponization, but that hasn't happened. So yeah, the history of Manipur and their relationship with the army, it of course, like, kind of, and by history of Manipur we have to say specifically Meitei community, right?
Maybe.
Because they were the ones who were mostly, like, kind of
Affected.
mobilizing against the army or
Mobilizing.
AFSPA, and through different ways for
Hmm.
using different incidents. But there have been instances, like for instance, inside Manipur University there is a post of the Assam Rifles. There is a small post of the Assam Rifles, and that's because even within university there used to be activities of the UG groups. Many of the Meitei student organizations are affiliated or are frontal organizations of some UG groups. And there have been instances of attacks on people who are from other communities, especially the Pangal community. A Pangal
Hmm.
professor was killed in 2007, 6, 7, one of those years, in campus. He was shot dead he was the dean of student affairs. He was shot dead because there was some disagreement with respect to election. Um, Indigenous people have been attacked inside campus as well, and people have spoken about the role of the UG groups, Meitei UG groups, in these attacks. So for that reason, there is a post of the Assam Rifles even inside, and if those officers weren't there, you know, when Manipur University was attacked by the Meitei mobs, we don't know what would have happened to these kids inside, to be it the students, young students, or the faculty or scholars. They were, I mean, I don't even want to imagine it. Because if these officers weren't there, like, because the videos that we saw of the mobs inside the university was crazy. It was like they were just on a rampage, pulling things and burning it down. You might have heard about those nursing students who are attacked, right?
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if these officers weren't there, I don't even want to think. I mean, most of the universities in Imphal, the students were rescued by the army, central forces, because that was the kind of impunity, right? For you to enter, for a mob to enter a central university or a state university, to pull out kids, to beat them up, to, burn their property, to burn their thesis. Students have lost their thesis and all. What kind of impunity would you have to do that? You know? So, yeah, the central forces have a role to play here in neutralizing the Meitei UG groups, I would say, neutralizing in different ways because they have presence across the valley, right?
Hmm.
And even now, there were operations that were carried out in late 2000s where they were pushed back and they went across the border. They
Hmm.
are the ones who went across the Burmese border. They are the ones who have camps there. Yet their own CM will talk about foreigners, but most of the Meitei UGs, we know where they are. In spite of these operations, they have a very strong presence across the valley. So to kind of keep that in check is why many of the communities here want especially the Kukizo community, want the presence of officers. But it's
Okay. Hmm.
that is one, but it's a little more complicated than that.
Okay, just two questions. I'll complete this interview. One, the chief minister's statement, in which he says that this is not a Hindu Christian clash, as it is being portrayed by many, as there are allegations that are leveled against the state government. In fact, in today's Times of India, there is an unnamed quote from an RSS functionary who also says that this is not a Hindu Christian clash, but there are layers to it. Like, one, we can understand there is the Meitei mob that is
It was
also.
the people who said it's a Hindu Christian clash is right wing people only.
Hmm,
It was
hmm,
they are the ones who, right in May, were saying that Christians are attacking Hindus, temples are being burned. The truth
hmm,
was
hmm,
very different, but it was being portrayed as a Hindu Christian clash by the right wing only. Now the right wing is saying it's not. The right wing clearly, like, the thing is, that's another thing, right? Most of the cookie legislators, 7 of them are from the BJP, you
hmm,
know but the right wing in India has so easily discarded them right in the beginning by saying that these are Christians, they are this and that and whatever, right? That is something that was visible as well. They immediately took the side of the Meiteis
hmm.
only after the video that
And
even
why
some
and
people
why
on
is
the
that
right wing
so?
started.
Why did they take the sides of the Meiteis?
because
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 they're majority
it's a little
Hindus.
too obvious.
Hmm,
It's a little too obvious because they're Christian. What
hmm.
else? It's a little too obvious, right? Because even the right wing organizations, be it the RSS or all the mm, sister organizations of the RSS that have existed in the Northeast, they've all spoken about the work of the missionaries over and over
Hmm.
again, right? That has been their kind of rallying point to mobilize in the Northeast because predominantly there are quite a few tribes here, communities here that are Christian. So the narrative that it was Hindu Christian was kind of driven by the right wing. Now they're saying it's not. They can say what they want. The I would say this violence is the state, the Meitei state versus cookies. Cookies are Christian. Their churches, many churches of the wherever villages were burned down, all their churches were burned down. All the churches in Imphal of the cookies, almost all were burned down. I don't know what is left because we can't even go there and check. But cookies were attacked, their houses were burnt, and so were their churches.
Hmm.
So it is a layered kind of a thing where I would say that cookie, yes, it's ethnic, it's also religious. Because how else
It's
would you
also
see that? Why else would you? Hmm?
I want to ask you about the influence of the right wing in the valley, in Imphal. It's more
Within the Meitei community,
within
yes,
the
even
Meitei
within the
community.
cookie community, even within the
Okay.
cookie community, because the Sioux groups entered with agreement with the central government, which is BJP, right? So did the 7 of the legislators are
Hmm.
BJP. But how it plays out in a minority community is different from how it plays out in a majority community, right? Majority community, in the face of a violence like this, can quickly do Hindu Christian and
Hmm.
then say
Hmm.
this is not Hindu Christian. you know they can say, many Meiteis themselves were sharing on social media that we are being attacked because we are Hindus, Christians are attacking us. They also tried portraying it as Hindu Christian. So I would say that that's the beauty of belonging to a community that can also say we are majoritarian, but can also say that we are uh, part of the majoritarian Hindu community, but can also say that we are ST, can also say that we have an indigenous religion, So that is all the things that come while you are powerful, right? You're a powerful community in the state where you are the one that holds the state apparatus, that you can
You
jump
can
from
have
one
you can
idea.
control the narrative.
Yeah, you can control the narrative and you can claim anything any day.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean the RSS can say what it wants, CM can say what it wants, that it's not Hindu, Christian, whatever. But the point is, what's happening right now between the state, Meitei state, and cookies is something that they should talk about, which they are not. They are not talking about their role in this. The RSS should talk about what its role in this is, if it has a role. CM should talk about what the role of his state is, and what the role of the larger community is in this violence. So should everybody else. So should all these organizations that have been parroting different kind of propaganda. Unless they do that, it's I think a pretty, it's going to be like neither here nor there.
And the role of Nagas in this conflict.
They have no role. They have maintained that they're
They're
neutral.
helping
uh,
both sides. They've maintained a neutral position, and I believe there are some reports that they are helping the Kuki community as
Yeah,
well
yeah.
as.
They have helped. They have, their stand is that they're neutral.
Hmm,
They help the displaced, be it Kuki or Meitei. Initially, when Meiteis were also displaced, they say that they helped them. Eventually, also, whenever there were people from Kuki communities whose villages were burnt, even in June, they have taken help from Nagas. But Nagas till now, only one group from Nagaland condemned the violence in the sense that they said so many churches have been burnt, and this is something that we have to take note of. Only one group in Nagaland said that, but other than that, they have kind of said that they want to remain neutral.
okay. And finally, my question: what is the way forward, Grishma? Since you have been reporting there, you know what are people in the valley are thinking, what are people in the hills are thinking about. So, what is the way forward? How do we bring this conflict to an end? Is there a solution, or is the
I
government
don't.
clueless?
I'm seriously. I don't know whether I'm equipped to answer this question, but I can just say what the protests here are kind of demanding. They're all saying that the only way that they see this being, see themselves coming to a point where they would agree to even have talks, which they would, sorry, how do I put this? The only demand that is coming from this side, that is the hill districts, is where they say that we have to be separated, we want separate administration. They either want UT, or there was initial talks about separate state, now they're talking about UT, but they're very clear that there is no thought in our mind, there is no single thought in our mind of working or existing under the Manipur state, so to say. By Manipur state, they mean the present political leaders or present
Dispensation.
political dispensation, right? So they said that's absolutely something that we won't do. We want to be separated. So every protest here is talking only about the separation, that they want separation. That has mostly been it. Whether that would come about or not, whether the central government would agree to it or not, is something that I don't know. But that's the demand from here. And I don't think they will back down from that demand, because as days go by, and as nothing is done to address the problems that are here, it becomes clearer for them that they have to administrate themselves, right? They have to have like mechanisms to do that, because they don't feel, and that's also systemic, right? The hill districts have been systemically neglected. They've been neglected. There's bad infrastructure. Like I said, all the universities are in the valley. There are no infrastructures for sports. The roads are bad. There are no street lights. It's pretty bad here. Everything that has been done in the hill districts, you can say that they have done it themselves to a
Hmm.
large extent. So they want to kind of break away
That
from
that
that
feeling
chain.
of neglect is already there, and it has only
Yeah, it's
intensified
been there
because
for
of this
decades.
violence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. This is like, for them, this was coming. They were like, this was always coming. There was too much of resentment against us, and we had also against them, because we were never treated well. That's how they kind of, that's what they've been articulating it in their memorandums and their representations that they've given to the central government.
Thank you, Grishma, for joining us. Appreciate you, talking to us and explaining to us what the ground situation is, and bringing your reports from the conflict region. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shabir. Thank you.